Okay, everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling in from. But here in Dallas, it's good afternoon, everybody. I am Charles Hayes, the director of the Center for Retail Innovation and Strategic Excellence at Jindal School of Management at the University of Texas at Dallas. Just recently, for some of you who haven't heard of that yet, just recently the Jindal School of Management created our new Center for Retail Innovation and Strategic Excellence, or RISE, as we refer to it on campus. RISE will be providing a focus for improving the DFW region's response to the needs and opportunities created by both disruptive technologies and digital transformation in the retail industry. These challenges have spawned an imperative to produce enhanced corporate value and customer experience in virtually all companies. Thus, we are focused to prepare with students, to partner with corporations, and practice or research as a Tier 1 university in the retail industry. Please feel free to reach out to if any of you have interest or further questions. We've set up a retail@utdallas.edu. So enough for the commercial on my part. But today I am also a member of the programs team here that plans the monthly tech industry luncheons, and it's my pleasure to welcome everyone and moderate today's lunch program. I believe most of our audience is now familiar with the Remo platform, but if you are having some problems with it, try refreshing your browser. If that does not work, you may seek assistance by clicking on the link in the chat room, and somebody will jump in and help you and try to get it all back where it belongs. The presenting sponsor of the Tech Industry Luncheon Series for all of 2021 is our partner group, UT Design Program at the University of Texas in Dallas. And just a few words about the university. Please welcome the Director of Corporate Relations for the Johnson School of Engineering and Computer Science, Don Pochiel.
Thank you, Charles. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Friday. Can you believe the fall semester at UT Dallas starts in just 7 days? We just completed the Olympics with athletes competing for gold medals and world records. This fall, our gold medal capstone program will launch a world record 147 UT Design capstone project teams, providing innovative solutions to their company sponsors, with a vast majority of these sponsored by North Texas companies. We have over 6,500 undergraduate students in the Johnson School. Last fall's entering freshmen averaged 1,420 on their SATs and included over 100 National Merit Scholars. These students get to build their engineering solutions in a world-class design studio supported by an all-pro team of faculty, directors, and support staff. Reasons why our student teams have won 9 national championships since 2014. We welcome companies of all sizes, from startups to giants like Raytheon, State Farm, Corvo, Murata, and Texas Instruments. These corporate sponsors have learned that we can give them a team of up to 6 capstone students for less than the cost of 1 intern. They have 1 or 2 semesters to try out these students for possible entry-level positions in their companies, all while working down part of their project backlog that they otherwise would not be able to address. We're still signing up sponsors for capstone projects to launch on August 27th, just a week from today, so there's just a small time window to send us your project proposal. So don't delay. Contact me for engineering projects or Rod Wetterskog for computer science projects. I'll put our contact information in the chat window in a moment. For more information about UT Design Capstone, visit our website at www.utdesign.com to learn how our students can accelerate your company's success. Let us be your engineering force multiplier. Back to you, Chuck.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. Quick reminder, we will have some time after the program today for an optional networking session, discussion questions, which will begin immediately after the presentation. And I believe Don and I will both be around, as well as the speaker. Before we begin, please let me explain how you may ask questions. Please submit your question in the Q&A feature of the platform, which is on the right of the screen. You may also vote on the questions to keep them at the top. We will be moderating the Q&A, and I will ask them as we go through the program. It is my pleasure now, after you've heard all of our noise, to introduce Skip Howard, the CEO of Spacee, Inc., for today's luncheon program. Skip is listed as an inventor and a developer of some of Spacee's patents. Spacee is also Skip's third startup company. Early on in Spacee's company history, Skip was instrumental in the development and project management of the Spacee Virtual Touch technology, making it one of the leading technology companies in the spatial augmented reality sector. Spacee's technology can turn 2- or 3-dimensional surfaces into touchscreen using only light. No phones, tablets, glasses, or any other wearables are necessary. After firmly establishing Spacee as an industry leader, Skip led the company's expansion of its second branch, Deming Robotics. The Deming Robotics system is the next generation smart shelf technology, providing a full automated IoT inventory solution for the supply chain management business sector. Skip also founded and currently runs the second largest computer vision developers group in the United States. Before Spacee, Skip built the media department for Ross Perot Jr.'s company. Welcome to the Tech Industry Luncheon, Skip.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Chuck. So I'm going to share my screen. And guys, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. This is not a right. I'm here to talk about trends in retail, things that we've learned. We've been very blessed and very lucky to work with some of the largest companies in the world. We service the global Fortune 1000. So as I go through this, I'm just going to share things we've learned, right? And at the end of this, obviously, we have a Q&A time, and I'm happy to go through that as well. So please let us know if you can't see the screen. Mallory can take care of that. But I'm going to get started. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Spacee, and I really appreciate that introduction, Chuck. We do service the global Fortune 1000 in retail. We have offices here in Dallas as our headquarters, UK, Australia, and now Dubai, right outside of Dubai. And we're growing around the world doing some of these things. It's a lot of fun. We are, at our core, a computer vision company, and what computer vision means is you are giving robots eyes, or you're programming against a video feed. You're using video and pictures to make decisions. And it is really a niche of artificial intelligence. It's a specific piece of AI. And if you're an AI company, you're a data company. So that's a little bit about us. A little bit more. We've had some really awesome accolades pretty recently. I guess the most recent one was Innovation in Retail by D Magazine. That was our local one too. So that was always fun. And of course, we work with some of the largest partners in the world. We are one of Intel's top 100 global ISVs, partners with Deloitte, NTT, Dell across the board, and the UTD Rise Center. So we are a foundation sponsor of that. And one of the goals for us is we feel like Dallas has tremendous talent, and we want to be part of the story to grow that talent and turn our city into a place where when you think AI, you think that we're players in that, right? As a city, not just a company. So we are investing back into the city to try to grow that presence. So lots of fun stuff there. But here's my agenda for the talk, right? I'm going to start out. I'm going to talk about some problems that we've identified. I'm going to talk about trends. I am going to show you how we solve them as a company to put it into context of ways to solve these, ways to play inside of these trends. So you will see some demonstrations of our technology as we go through that. And then I just have a lesson learned I'd like to communicate to everybody at the end of this, if that's all right. So the biggest problem in retail right now is the war for data. And it's kind of a two-front battle, or a two-front war. Right now, you have a Fortune 1 and a Fortune 2 battling it out for the cheapest price possible, and everybody else is losing that war, right? If you're going to go compete against one of these two companies, you either have to have a product that they don't sell, which is diminishing by the day. You have to have really high quality, a quality that wouldn't exist in one of these platforms, which is also becoming increasingly hard to do. Or you have to create some sort of experience you won't be able to find either online or in a store by one of these two giants. So there's not a whole lot you can do to compete on price, but there's a whole lot you can do to compete in other areas. So these are one part of the war. The other part of the war is no matter who you are as a retailer, your CPGs or your consumer product goods companies, that's like your Coke, Pepsi, Frito-Lays, the people who make the stuff inside of these retail environments, they want to know what's happening inside of a store. They want to know their customers. They want to know what's on the shelf, what's off the shelf, what's selling. They need all of that data. And the retailers also want all of that data, because whoever controls that can literally control pricing. And that's kind of the dirty secret of that relationship. There's very few examples of them working together in a very healthy, well done way. And it's more often than not a lot of this kind of competition back and forth. So these are some problems to give you context. When we talk about trends that are happening, you'll see these trends are solving some of these larger problems. And again, this is our opinion being around the world. So, one last one that's really important is the Amazon problem. The Amazon problem. This is really specific to Amazon. Amazon doesn't really compete on profits. They're not trying to make high margins on products, right? They have a completely different measure of success. Their multiple on their stock is insane. There's not another retailer that can command that. And their R&D budget, I believe last time I checked, it was $21 billion annually. The next runner-up is something like $500 million, and that's the number two guy, right? So there's just a giant gap of R&D budget between these companies. But the most important thing I want to leave you guys with is retailers have a problem where if you are encouraging a customer to pull out their phone to take actions, you've just become a showroom for Amazon, because most likely you can get it cheaper online, right? So you'll find one of the trends we'll talk about is how do we keep that phone in the pocket until you have a checkout process, right? So you don't want to become a showroom for Amazon, and Amazon wants a retailer to do that. So these are some of the larger problems. As I said, we'll give you context. So getting into trends, what we see coming down the road for retailers is experiential, right? Screens can be anything, creating experience. It doesn't mean putting a TV up, right? That if you have it in your house, it's probably not true innovation in the retail world. So this is an example. I'm going to play a video, an example of turning a piece of drywall into a screen. So here we are, Spacee, we're projecting a screen onto a wall, and there's no power running on that wall. There's a camera in the ceiling, a projector in the ceiling, super sharp angle, but it's hidden and it's magical, right? The other key piece for retailers is this is unbreakable. We are unbreakable. I'm getting feedback that my volume is low, so I'm going to try to turn that up for 1 second here. See if that helps at all. Hopefully that helps. Because when you are using a screen like this, you're actually touching like millimeters of air in front of that screen, right? So you're really not even touching the wall. You can't break this kind of touchscreen versus like an iPad and all of that. So the total cost of ownership comes way, way, way down, and you can really grow that way. So this is an example of Spacee trying to solve the problem with screens could be anything. Another example we have, this is kind of an older example, but we were a little bit ahead of our time, so it's super relevant still, is taking a 3D object and merging media and product together into the same experience. So now we turned a car into a touchscreen. I think some people may have seen this already. This has been out for a little bit, but it's still worth talking about, because this is where we learned that by merging a media and product together it actually can drive sales. And I don't mean in a squishy way. I mean, we had this in a mall for a while, and we had about 1,000 visitors a month use this in a mall. And we would have people walk into the dealership and say, hey, that car with all that lights on it, I want to buy that one. And that to us, right? Because there's 1,000 handprints on this thing. And so what we found out was there's something called emotive cognition, and that's when you touch it and you feel something. For a small percent of that population, it tips into a sale, right? So it's just interesting, but we found out this isn't just entertainment. There's actual value behind doing some of these things. So that was highly, highly successful. And it's just an example of turning larger items into screens. Then we thought, all right, well, the transactions inside of stores, you can turn that, you can kind of revolutionize how you do that as well. So here's an example of us turning a deli sneeze guard into a screen. So you're not rolling in a whole nother kiosk, right? You don't have to just plug something in, and if the tech breaks, you have a broken screen. If there's any issue with it, you're back to just having a sneeze guard, right? There's no power running to this thing. So we're projecting it from behind the worker, severe angles, hidden, magical, all of that, and you're touching the glass. So you have to shatter the glass to break the screen, and then you just replace the glass. There's no TVs and all of that kind of stuff. Highly unlikely to shatter the glass. But it's an example of the trend about turning anything into a screen and creating experiences, trying to solve that experiential problem that we see inside of retailers. Another trend, making products smart, right? We have smartphones, why not everything? So this is the most handsome model we have at Spacee. Sorry, that's an engineering joke. But here we are. I'm going to show you a quick demonstration about how we do that. So this is our way to try to solve problems inside of retailers. So in this Spacee way, you can take any product you want off of a shelf, and it doesn't use barcode reading. It doesn't use RFID tags. You just put it on a table and it comes to life. You serve out content. We recognize the packaging and we serve out content. We miniaturized our tech, so that's still a touch glass experience. There's a little miniature projector and a camera inside of this box. And so we did turn it into a kiosk here, but it works with multiple products. So if you want to see how two things work together, or if you want to see compare and contrast, it's a way for CPGs to not have to do anything in order to get intelligent products and smart products. The big key here that we've learned, and I'm just sharing knowledge, is you can actually guide user behavior. You can't do that if they have their own phone and it's just an app where you're trying to sell them stuff inside of a store. You want to curate things so you can guide and you can measure upsells, because really at the end of the day, if you're going to measure sales lift and you're going to create experiences, they are measurable and they are quantifiable. You have to be able to A/B test those in real life to do that. So obviously the next trend is health and safety, but obviously it's something everybody knows about. We just went through a pandemic. We're probably not out of the woods, right, with the Delta and what's coming down the road. Our answer to this was to create contactless shopping experiences, because people are still going out. We just all recognize it's important to be as safe as possible and not touch as much stuff as you can today. So what we did is, because we are one of these AI companies that build our framework from end to end, it's not an SDK, we're able to variabilize, instead of millimeters of air, turn it into like a foot. So you can actually hover over digital buttons and create a contactless shopping experience. Zero equipment change out, right? It's just a variable that's pushed down to the edge machine. And so now you don't have to worry about transferring germs. And I'm sure you guys have read all about touch screens having not so healthy matter all over them when the public's using it. So this is a way for retailers to really provide something that's a little safer. Personally, we're looking at going into hospitals and things next with this, but the idea is beyond just masking up and 6 feet apart and all of that. What other things can we do as a retailer to show our shopping community, as well as not just show them, but authentically try to solve these problems to prevent germs from spreading? So That's one other trend. And then finally, the supply chain. Now, you can't talk about retail without talking about supply chain, right? When we talked about the war of data between retailers and CPGs, they're all trying to figure out how to get it there less expensively, how to not order so much, all of that kind of stuff. We have a dimming robotics division in Spacee that solves this problem. And these are the real dollar values associated with that problem. So I'm kind of revisiting the problem here. So, a lot of this is known, and this is just for the Fortune 1000. And again, the values start dropping when you go past that, but not too much. Out of stocks has always been a known, and that's when you have a product that should be on a shelf, but it's not on a shelf. So you can't buy it if it's not on a shelf, if you're shopping in a shopping cart. It's usually about $1 billion problem per these big retailers. The deal is there's substitutive products built into there. So, if you're going to go buy pretzels, you might be okay buying a different brand of pretzels because your brand's off a shelf. But if you're going to buy like a Pepsi, you're probably not okay buying a Coke. Or if you're buying a Coke, you're not okay buying a Pepsi, right? So you're just going to go without, or you're going to go somewhere else. So about 30% of that $1 billion number is completely lost sales, and the other 70% is squishy for these retailers. There might be substitutive sales. You have modular integrity. That's what we call planogram and digital merchandising, where retailers pay. CPGs pay for certain products to be at certain eye levels and all of that. These are problems that retailers overorder, underorder. But the biggest thing COVID revealed to us was click and collect problems. So this is another secret inside of retail, and I'm not going to tell you where we learned it for NDA purposes, but right now, when you place an order online, a lot of these retailers are fulfilling your order through the stores that are already out there. They're not going to a warehouse. There's some dark stores and things that are popping up, but for the most part, they're fulfilling through their retail establishments. And the time it takes for a person, they have to pay to go pick up your order off the shelves and put it in a cart and bring it out to your car or give it to somebody on Instacart to go deliver it. If they have products not on a shelf and they sold them to you online and they got to go substitute them, that is a lot of extra time to go figure out what else is there or go check the back to see if it's there. So most of the time they lose more money on the cost it takes to fulfill that order than the profit they make on that order. And that's a big deal. So we are the last inch is about knowing what's on the shelf, right? Figuring out what's on the shelf. And if you know what's on the shelf, you can be more like a website, and you either don't sell it or you switch them to a substitute product right then and there at the point of purchase. Less friction, right? So I'm going to show you how we do that as a company, but this is a race that it's not new. It's something that everybody's been trying to solve for decades. The approaches in the last 5 or 6 years have been new, and we feel like we're obviously at the top of that, but there's lots of ways to solve this. So this is what we do as a company. This is how we explain it, and then I'll show you the pictures. So you have to imagine you're in a giant grocery store, and on the top shelf we install this railing system, and inside that railing system we put a tiny robot with a little eye, and he drives himself up and down the aisle, looking across the aisle, and maps all the products together. This happens every 20 minutes. And then let's say we have to upgrade that guy, or we need to swap him out. We just mail new ones out to the store manager. There's no IT rollout, nothing like that. The store manager can plug and play, and these rails can go as long as you want, right? As the longer the aisle, the cheaper it is to do this. So there's different ways to attach. If you have produce, you need to have a bird's eye view. If you have other kinds of gondolas, all of that. And here's where the secret sauce kind of comes in. So that guy's doing a lot of data collection, but we don't stream it up to the cloud, because if you're streaming terabytes of data from a store, you're paying tens of millions of dollars in transfer costs. So instead, we stream it to a server on site that gets serialized into kilobytes, terabytes to kilobytes, and that's what goes into the cloud. Again, every 20 minutes, 72 times a day. So now you're getting this near real-time inventory. You're able to apply AI to it. You're able to send alerts down to make fixes in real time. Hey, we're out of stock on this. Go fix that. Update the website on this. Data science is telling us that we need to fill a truck up and get there in the next 4 hours because of the velocities, right? So now you can do things that have always been like the holy grail, and that's stop Monday and Wednesday deliveries and make it on demand. Demand-based delivery windows and delivery routing, which should save, we have one client telling us it saves about $1 billion because they could take a third of their trucks off the road if they just know what's there. They're not filling them up and hoping. They're filling them up for exact numbers, so you're getting more real time. It's about 7 different $1 billion problems we discussed earlier. And then finally, I want to talk about another trend. Well, let me show you the picture just for context. This is it in the grocery store. So we call it our invisible robot because it's invisible to the shopping process. So it's kind of fun. And I'm going to pause real quick because there's another, I like to go down rabbit holes. There's another tangent, right? We believe strongly that you can have the coolest technology in the world, but if you don't get your UX correct, you're going to fail, right? UX is so important. We know that going in from our first half of the business, so we have to design these robots to be invisible. There's a lot of tech out there that get in the way of people, get in the way of shoppers, and it's just not a good practice to try to train the world to change their behavior instead of you changing your thinking process so the world doesn't have to change. I think you get so much more widely adopted. And so we're scaling worldwide because of that principle and because of how we're pulling this stuff off, which is exciting for us, right? But going back, the last inch is something that's really, really important. And then finally, sustainability within that. You may not have this message so much in Texas that you would in California, but I guarantee we're in Europe. That's critical in Europe. It's critical in Australia. It is important to a lot of companies in Texas, by the way. And it's critical in the Middle East. And that was a surprise. But if you don't have a sustainability message, you really can't go anywhere in the Middle East, which is pretty interesting. So what that means to us is our little robots take 1 watt of energy. For something like a superstore, you're talking about $5,300 in electricity a year for that store for these robots to operate. So when you start doing that and you're not replacing batteries all the time and you're not having to pay giant electric bills just to inject technology, you don't have to worry about changing your lead status or not complying with city ordinances on what kind of emissions are you generating from your power usage, all of that stuff. All of that's critical. Another big piece that it's a little smaller, I should say, but creating these things to be durable. So this rail that we've extruded takes 3,600 pounds of pressure, and it's already survived several forklift hits. So you don't have to just it's not so cheap that you have to throw it away and put a new one in every time. It's cheap enough to put it in, and then it's durable, right? So you're not just constantly pumping out new metal and new plastic, which is really, really important. And then I want to talk about the large company issue. So these are some recommendations. We talked about problems, talked about some trends that we've identified. I've tried to drop some just nuggets of things we've found. Hopefully it's been helpful to a lot of people in the audience. But I want to talk about a large company issue and a recommendation. This is purely Skip's opinion at this point, so I know I might get in a little bit of trouble, but here we go. When I look at most large companies in the United States, I feel like this is the model. You have a really bright CEO or C-suite, and they're spinning really fast. We want to transform this business. We want to make waves. We want to take us to the next level. And you have all these college graduates or new hires and fresh blood. Oh, we want to change the world. We want to use this business. This business is amazing. We can contribute so much. And you have this giant cog in the middle that hardly moves at all, if it moves, right? It's just, it's that whole middle legacy system. And to give you a very real example of this, we worked with a Fortune 1 company in Arkansas. Let's just throw that out there. I mean, I'm not going to tell you who they are, but we were part of an early store of the future with these guys. And so you have a CEO saying, hey, I want a store of the future. and I'm going to hire you, Mr. Fast Spinning Cog. And Mr. Fast Spinning Cog goes, I want to do this. This is amazing. I'm so in love with this. Real estate department. This is what I want the store of the future to look like, right? He takes it to the real estate department. The real estate department says, well, you can't do this, this, and this because of city code. Here's version 2. Okay. I'll cut that out. But how about this? Well, that's not really how we do things. So it needs to be like this, this, and this. And it looks like a standard store. There's nothing special. So the guy's like, okay, real estate didn't work, but I'm going to get IT to step up. IT, these are the systems I want to put in place. We're going to revolutionize how people check out and all this. Well, we don't support those systems. They're against our policy. We don't have authority to put those in. So these are the list of systems that are approved. And this is, year-long process if you want to add somebody. And so just another wall, right? Fine. I'll use the same systems. I'm going to go to vendors. And so we were one vendor with a very small part. And then they went and put TVs in all the aisles, touchscreens. And so he comes back to the CEO and he says, boss, I did it. Here's your store of the future. And the boss says, I gave you 5 times the budget of a store, and you gave me a store with televisions in it. You're fired, right? And so I just want to, the big cog in the middle didn't get fired. The little cog that wanted to do something awesome got fired. I just want to, if anybody's in the position of power, please reward failed attempts, right? This is my takeaway. At Spacee, how we do this is you are expected to fail a lot. If you're not failing, we know you're not trying things, right? You can fail. You just can't do the same thing twice. You just can't repeat failures of the same problems, right? That's where we measure true weakness, right? But you have to fail forward until you get something that works. Innovation is risk. There is risk. That's what it means. You're doing stuff people don't do normally. Take some risks, and if you are in the position of power, enable your folks to try. That's just my big feedback to this group. I want to end on one last note. Just, man, there's so many technologies that excite me just as a fan and as a giant nerd. And there's so many awesome technologies in DFW. I could take 5 lunches talking about them all. I'm not going to, right? But these are some things you should have on your radar if you don't already. And there's a whole lot more than this. These are just within the retail world. But with that, I will turn it back to Chuck, and maybe we can do some questions if that works.
Fantastic job, Skip. Great information. Obviously, we're definitely focused a little bit on retail now, and I appreciate you bringing this information to us. I think the thing that's interesting is all the technology that's associated with all of this, and looking around the attendees, we've got a lot of individuals busy in computer science, busy in technology, busy in data processing, etc. And what do you think is the biggest opportunity? And let me pause myself here for a second. If any of you have any questions, now's the time to put them up on our Q&A on the side, and we'll be glad to tackle them and look, see if you got anything special. And I guess my challenge to you is let's find a question we can challenge Skip with.
Oh, thanks.
He's a real smart guy, but I bet we can find something he can't die down. But what do you think is the I'm sitting here and I'm writing notes. My notes are supply chain, COVID, frictionless. And the COVID and the frictionless are really hanging together. And I think we got a huge opportunity with the supply chains are so far behind right now. What are you seeing on that supply chain side where there's some of the new innovation that's going to help propel that forward in the immediate future, not when we're on the 20th version of this virus?
Yeah, agreed. I'll tell you right now, for us, we are scaling worldwide. COVID accelerated the adoption of trying to solve these problems because it's a direct savings to the bottom line, right? If you could do it less expensive, you can save money immediately. So what we've seen is like a 5-year technology spend condensed into about a year and a half, like pretty recently. And the mass adoption, the other acceleration of online ordering, which it was already there, is always going to happen, but it went real short and everybody's doing that now. So that adoption acceleration has greatly highlighted problems that they have, and the costs have been magnified to solve those problems. So when you're talking about what technologies are there, it's technologies that allow us to go faster, allow us to understand the data better. You know, everything from picking robots in robotics in warehouse to solving SOX issues in warehouse so you don't have to shut down as much, to optimizing your labor force. There's another huge problem in warehouses, trying to find people that would actually show up to work, right? So solving those kinds of things are just, these are all the big opportunities in supply chain. The last inch is something that every retailer's tried to figure out for the last decade or more. You know about that, right? But at home delivery, I mean, anything that makes it frictionless and more efficient, every retailer's looking at right now.
Fantastic. There was a question that came in here I was asking and you were answering. What have you seen in parallel verticals in industries that maybe some of the stuff that you all have come up with or patented even that could be used in other verticals, in other industries, et cetera? Because technology reaches everything.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we talked about going into hospitals and hospitality, in the Middle East, digitizing entire cities, right? And turning those into interactive and responsive screens, making responsive stores. There's in retail specifically, the frictionless shopping that Amazon kind of pioneered forever ago, the Amazon Go stores, lots of companies pulling that off. There's not a lot of adoption in that, right? Because it's kind of too far in the future. You can't go too far. You have to have some steps that get you there. And that's kind of where we are. We're steps to go there, and we will go there, right? But yeah, there's a lot of industries. Our problem is, it's like, if you can imagine it, we can probably do it, right? And that's a little bit about drowning an opportunity. You don't want to do that either. So you got to focus. But yeah, we can go into quite a few of other industries besides retail. Retail is also not known to be early adopters. Right? So.
True. Yeah, that's exciting on the whole side of the medical. And, we at UTD and here in Dallas in particular have some a lot of bio work going on with the hospitals, et cetera, through the universities. And what do you think is the biggest trend? I don't want to use trend. Trend's a bad word. What do you think is the biggest opportunity in that medical side, hospitals, from what you've seen in regards to the use of some of your technology?
Well, it's cleaner, right? If you don't have to touch a wall, like, that's just better than having a touch screen to do all sorts of things, from check-ins to information to ordering an elevator, right? So for us, it'd be a presentation layer in hospitals. But then there's also serious supply chain problems in hospitals, and we have fantastic companies in Dallas that are trying to solve that, and we're one of them, right? And it's just kind of inherently in the process of how hospitals run. There's just a little bit of waste on that side. Sometimes, there's how do I say this the right way? There's some interest inside of these organizations where they're not interested in getting more efficient, right? So those are some challenges.
You made a comment towards the end of very much about having risk, and that if you don't see risk, that there's no innovation. I'm paraphrasing. What's the last failure you had?
Me? You want the last 10? They were yesterday, Like,
no, I'm just curious,
I don't know, man. There's so many small ones. They're like, well, and there's some big ones, right? Entering the Middle East the wrong way was probably a pretty big failure of mine. You do all your diligence, you talk to a lot of smart people, and the people are amazing people in the GCC countries. The problem is it's a little bit like Mars. It's just a completely different way to operate, and you just have to you almost have to be from that world a little bit to really get it. So, but it was costly, but it's working out for us now.
Okay. Another question just came up, and I'm going to have a follow-up on that, but let's take care of the question and answer here. Could use screen technology be applied to billboards with interaction by passengers in cars? That's a great question.
That is a good question. That's probably not in the near term, because you'd have to. We are using cameras to make the interactive work. We are basically calibrating a 2D and 3D space into a digital environment in only 2D space, and they're both different worlds, right? So you'd almost have to have a camera pointed at a passenger, and they do this, and it'd be moving. Like it's probably not practical. Is probably a better way to do it. Possible, not real practical. The cost would be crazy high.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there's a way to do anything, right? We have a lot of crazy things in the pipe I can't talk about.
Mm-hmm. Come on, give us a little something special. Yeah, I'm joking, just joking.
I think I have.
No, I am. The thing is, I think when I hear, it's interesting to hear when I ask you about a risk, you're saying, we don't have risk, we don't have failures, we're not moving forward. I think everybody philosophically would agree with that. But when you answered a question about something business that wasn't necessarily the technology you were having. So I would hazard to guess that you're saying the risk goes everywhere.
It's everywhere for us, right? I haven't developed in about 4 years. I was a developer, but I'm the CEO, and we have our roles now. But we encourage our developers, hey, go. You want to try a new camera? You want to see if you can get more accurate? Go do it. Take 2 weeks. If that 2 weeks goes to nothing, we now know that camera can't work. It's okay. You learned, right? What I can't have you do is take 3 months to figure that out. And in 2 weeks you would have known, but you keep trying, and it's just a bad path to go down. You should identify it as fast as possible, right? Or somebody else tries the same camera and fails, and then somebody else tries this same, stuff like that. There's lots of technical risk for us, as well as business risk.
Mm-hmm. You had mentioned Dubai, and did you say you were over in Europe also?
Yeah, we're in Europe.
Okay.
Our office is in Leeds, UK, and it handles all of Europe, even though most of our work is in the UK.
Okay, someone showed me another place we got some questions, so I hope you're comfortable because we're going to be here. No, I'm just joking.
All right.
What's your read on the news that Amazon will be opening larger department stores?
So I don't know if that's confirmed, but they might. They probably will, right? These guys will spend $1 billion to try things, right? And like I said, they don't have the same success metrics. They're going to have to hit a ceiling at some point, and maybe it's not at department stores. Maybe it's much, much further down the road. You have to be profitable, right? Right now, most of their profit comes from AWS services, their cloud services, which they had no intention of being a service when they started, right? They just kind of fell into it. So there's a lot of examples of Amazon and other larger companies. Kroger's a good one, right? Where they create these IT divisions and then they spin them off into companies and they try to go kind of disrupt the retail world. I have a fundamental, Amazon's a little funny, right? But most other retailers that try to do that, I think fundamentally have a challenge that they're not a tech company. They know retail really well, but you have to really be tech innovators to be long-term in that game, right? So you see it over and over. They shut down after 4 or 5 years, over and over and over, because that's not their thing. Amazon, their bet can last a lot longer than 5 years. right? I mean, it costs like almost $1 billion to make Amazon Go, and it's 1,600 square feet, right? It's still alive. And it might last another 10 years, but these are the kind of scales they're working on. So I don't know if the department store thing's going to happen. Last I read, it was a rumor, or they're announcing that they plan on it, which doesn't mean they're doing it, right? They're every retailer's boogeyman, right? So everybody's worried about them, and from competing against them on certain things, I don't think you have as much to worry about as it feels like. It's probably the best way to say that.
Also, let's see. I've seen some innovative in tech in retail stores, but not much of the great examples you showed. Are they adopted in the DFW area, and where? Not
really. The U.S. is not an early adopter. That's why we're in Europe, Australia, and the Middle East. And it's kind of sad. I love this country, right? And I think we have a spirit of entrepreneurship here and all of that. But most of the big companies here follow, right? Follow what's happening. You kind of have some false flags from some large companies where they try things out. They typically want to own it and they go promote it, but you never see it go anywhere because it's more like a story than they're really trying to change the way they do business. So, but no, there's not a lot in DFW. You'll see the touch cars here pretty soon. Now that, COVID for that half of the business kind of locked up quite a bit of it because your in-store shopping, in-store retail has not been available for a very long time. So it's all unlocking now, and we're starting to roll it out a little bit more in the U.S. But there's not a whole lot in the U.S. or even DFW.
Are you seeing any of the, I was with one of our students here last night, as a matter of fact, from China, the streaming in retail. How is your type of technology and capabilities going to affect the new streaming retail focus over in Asia and other parts of the world?
Yeah, look, and you're talking about streaming retail technology so you can shop virtually, right? That's what we're talking about?
Yes.
So that is kind of e-commerce 2.0, right? That's still in the e-commerce bucket. And e-commerce isn't going away. It's growing heavily. It's going to continue eating market share of physical. And the only way we are trying to save the physical retail store with what we're doing. We're trying to save that. You have to have some sort of experience that you can't get online, right? A VR experience is very different than real life. At least for the next 10 years. So I don't see that as competitive because e-commerce is just an evolution of e-commerce. That's how I see it.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're sitting here, we're looking at, are there any more questions that anybody would want to share before I start to wrap this up and we maybe move into a networking off of the particular subject, but if there's any other questions, I don't see any. I don't hear any. Skip, I want to thank you for being with us today and being able to make things happen. On behalf of Tech Titans and our TIL audience, thank you. This has been a very interesting discussion on truly cutting-edge topic. The Tech Industry Luncheons wishes to again thank UT Design Program at UT Dallas for being our presenting sponsor. And our next Tech Industry Luncheon will be on September 17th. And we hope to make that a hybrid presentation featuring speakers from Appian, KPMG, and Amazon. Details will be forthcoming. All the details on these events, plus the many other Tech Titan activities, can be found on the website at www.techtitans.org. In a moment, we will move into the networking session. You'll be randomly assigned to a table if you choose. Please be sure to turn your camera and microphone on to take part in the networking when you want to move to another table. Proceed to your desired table and double-click on the center of the table to gain access. Since the tables are only 6 seats seats for people, we ask that you rotate frequently among the tables to improve the networking experience and give everyone a chance to speak to our presenter. You may find out who is in attendance by looking at the names in the chat room or by single clicking on anyone's avatar. Thank you for attending today's luncheon, and I'm a few minutes ahead of schedule. I would like to know that if you have any questions, we will be here and be in this networking capability. And so I'm going to let us sit here, and our producer behind the scenes is going to be setting up the groups, etc. And so I would invite her if she would like to step in and help us go through the process of getting into the different tables. Are you up for that, Mallory? I caught her off guard.
No worries. We're going to move into conversation mode right now. So hold on.
Fantastic. Thank you. Again, thanks everybody for joining us today. This has been very interesting. Retail obviously is a sweet spot, and there's a lot of technology in it. So please keep in touch with us all.